Relational ontology claims no independent, self-contained objects exist anywhere in the universe. Yet, when a stone strikes a pane of glass, the impact is absolute. The glass shatters, the shards fall. Physical resistance is a verifiable fact with severe consequences. We have to explain how that unforgiving solidity arises if neither the stone nor the glass possesses an isolated essence. We call this the conventional domain. It functions as a dependently stabilized truth, a scale of reality where relational patterns lock together into reliable functional structures. The macroscopic world is undeniably real, but its reality is an achievement of interaction rather than a property of inherent substances. This brings us to the work of the laboratory. Science doesn't succeed by discovering isolated objects. It succeeds by mapping conventional reality with extraordinary fidelity. That precision is built on a specific mechanical process known as fruitful forgetting. Look at the physical constraints of a laboratory. These researchers are artificially narrowing the infinite, messy relational field of the universe down to a single, repeatable interaction. Measuring tools are designed to crop out background noise. They construct a highly controlled boundary to see how a specific system behaves when the rest of the universe is deliberately ignored. The things we identify in these conditions, whether electrons or stones, are the consistent results of these specific relational events. This shows what a scientific observable actually is. It is the glowing intersection of two crossing lines, the precise outcome of an interaction rather than an intrinsic property. Science possesses extreme predictive power because it rigorously limits relationships. It proves that stability is an achievement of interaction, not a baseline substance of reality. To find independent substance at the bottom of physical reality, we turn to quantum mechanics. For decades, physics operated on the assumption of local realism, the idea that particles hold pre-existing properties entirely on their own. We can test this assumption mathematically. If these two separated nodes hold pre-existing independent states, their statistical measurements would hit a hard mathematical limit called Bell's inequality. Actual experiments broke that limit. The math definitively proves that local independence fails. Physicist Elaine Aspect confirmed this mathematical failure through decades of experimentation, earning the Nobel Prize. His results confirm that the independent, self-contained particle cannot be found. Theoretical physicist Carlo Rovelli formalized this absence of isolation into relational quantum mechanics. Rovelli's model shows that a physical state is never absolute. A particle state remains undefined until a connection forms with another system. The properties emerge entirely from the interaction. At the fundamental level, physics perfectly aligns with relational ontology. The idea of independent self-nature is mathematically and empirically dead. If the foundation of reality is entirely relational, we have to explain how that translates back into the solid stone striking the window. The mechanical bridge from quantum fluidity to macroscopic reality is called decoherence. This waveform represents an isolated quantum system. It exists as a fluid, superimposed wave, lacking any defined classical boundaries. In reality, systems are never isolated. Thousands of environmental particles, photons, and air molecules constantly strike that quantum system. These environmental strikes select and amplify stable pointer states. This continuous interaction locks the system into a rigid classical form. The stone is solid because the broader environment has redundantly verified and stabilized its relational data. Relational logic also applies to the ultimate boundary, the division between mind and body. The hard problem of consciousness, the gap between subjective experience and gray matter, originates as a grammatical illusion. Our language hardens awareness and matter into rigid noun categories, creating a collision that grammar cannot resolve. Shifting to an adverbial solution changes the question. We stop asking what a mind is and start asking how reality happens. Reality occurs mindedly. Mind and body are simply correlative modes of the exact same relational field. If there is no isolated entity sitting in a control room, we have to account for the actual experience of self-knowing. The traditional witness model leads to an infinite regress. If every experience needs a watcher, then that watcher needs a watcher of its own. To break that loop, we look at the structure of reflexivity, the way a hand can both touch and be touched simultaneously. This is the fold. Awareness happens when physical reality curves back onto its own surface, creating a localized point of contact. In this contact, the knower and the known arise as two poles of the same event. Subjectivity is the system's own intimacy with its occurring. Consciousness emerges as the relational field knowing itself in the very act of occurring. Logic, quantum mechanics, and philosophy have deconstructed the myth of the independent object. These intellectual tools act as a bridge. They provide the framework necessary to cross over from the confusion of noun-based thinking. But you cannot permanently live on the bridge. Eventually, conceptual frameworks must be dropped to prevent them from becoming new metaphysical idols. The ultimate goal is the unarmored encounter, where intellectual map-making yields to direct lived participation. In this final encounter, the scientific realist and the relationalist merge. The empirical map provided by science and the territory of reality are recognized as the same relational movement. The stone still breaks the window. Gravity still pulls. The physical world remains exactly where it was. The world has simply been emptied of its artificial isolation and returned to us in full. The blueprints and the complex equations dissolve completely, leaving behind only the unannotated natural flow of the relational world. Reality is not an inventory of things. It is a singular, luminous relation.